Meghan Markle arrived at the New York City studio of The View with a calm, rehearsed elegance. Her team had prepped her for days. This appearance was meant to be a light yet empowering conversation about her new initiative, Women Forward, which focused on building global mentorship networks for underrepresented women in politics and business. Dressed in a sleek white pantsuit and minimalist jewelry, Meghan exuded the poise of someone who had weathered storms and now chose carefully when to speak. Backstage, she smiled warmly, exchanged polite greetings, and sipped her herbal tea while reviewing talking points. Her comms advisor gave her a last-minute reminder: stay on message. Let the work speak for itself. You don't have to engage unless it's worth it. Little did they know, The View had its own plan for the day. As the show kicked off, the live audience erupted in applause. Whoopi Goldberg, seated at the center of the semicircular desk, welcomed viewers and introduced Meghan as a duchess, an activist, a mother, and someone who's never been afraid to speak her truth. Meghan smiled and gave a gracious nod as she took her seat at the table. At first, the tone was civil. Joy Behar lobbed a few softball questions about motherhood and how life in Montecito differed from London. Meghan responded with charm, even slipping in a joke about chasing two toddlers around the house being harder than any royal tour. But just 10 minutes in, the energy shifted. Sunny Hostin leaned in. Her voice was calm, but her words carried weight. Meghan, while your message about empowering women is certainly admirable, there's been a lot of chatter about the fallout with Spotify, the halted projects, and some saying the public is experiencing Markle fatigue. How do you respond to those who believe the substance hasn't matched the spotlight? Meghan's smile faltered, but only for a second. I think when you're a woman of color in a position of visibility, she replied, especially one who speaks up, there's always fatigue, because people aren't used to seeing women like me in places like this. A few claps broke out from the audience, but the hosts weren't finished. Whoopi, often the bridge between conflict and calm, chimed in. Meghan, you've had huge media platforms, and no doubt you've used them to raise awareness. But do you think there's ever a point where media presence starts to eclipse the message itself? Meghan turned to her slowly. Her tone stayed polite, but her eyes narrowed. When I speak about mental health or women's rights, the conversation often shifts to what I'm wearing or who I'm married to. That's not an accident. The public doesn't fatigue from purpose, they fatigue from how the press frames it. That's when Alyssa Farah Griffin leaned forward, arms crossed. She wasn't interested in optics, she wanted confrontation. But Meghan, some would argue that you've deliberately leaned into that framing. The Netflix series, the podcast, the interviews, you've chosen platforms that turn private pain into public spectacle. Are you helping the cause or building a brand? The tension snapped like a brittle twig. Meghan inhaled sharply. With all due respect, Alyssa, I don't take branding lessons from someone who worked in a White House that diminished women and silenced survivors. Gasps spread through the audience. Alyssa's eyes flared. Excuse me. No, Meghan said, now turning fully toward her. You questioned whether what I do is real. I've sat with girls in Rwanda who walk 3 miles just to attend school. I've visited shelters for women fleeing violence. This isn't a brand, it's a responsibility. The fact that my platform amplifies it doesn't. The studio fell into a strained silence after Meghan's sharp retort. Alyssa Farah Griffin looked stunned, her expression somewhere between indignation and disbelief. Co-host Sarah Haynes instinctively reached for her coffee mug, using it as a shield from the growing tension. Meghan, meanwhile, sat tall, her jaw set, her voice cool but steady. Whoopi Goldberg was the first to attempt damage control. Okay, let's bring it down a notch. We're not here to attack anyone, we're here to have a conversation. The following morning, headlines were everywhere. Meghan Markle storms off the View set after explosive on-air clash. Daytime TV turns ugly. Meghan Markle and co-hosts in heated showdown. Was Meghan set up? Inside the tense interview gone wrong. Clips of the exchange went viral almost immediately after it aired. One particular moment, Meghan rising from her seat and declaring, "This isn't journalism, it's daytime drama in disguise," was replayed on nearly every platform. Millions shared it, debated it, dissected her words, tone, and body language. Commentators on both the left and the right had plenty to say. Some hailed Meghan as bold, unfiltered, and courageous. Others accused her of playing the victim yet again, claiming she had been too sensitive for a show known for its strong personalities. But one thing was clear, the conversation had struck a nerve far deeper than a single talk show segment. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the View staff was in chaos. Producers scrambled to contain the fallout. The segment had ended awkwardly, with Meghan leaving the stage before the final break. During the commercial, Whoopi had been seen talking quietly with the control room, allegedly asking for all remaining Meghan segments to be pulled from the rebroadcast. Later that day, ABC issued a brief, diplomatic statement. Today's episode featured a passionate exchange of views. While the conversation became more heated than expected, we remain committed to providing a platform for diverse opinions and respectful dialogue. But sources inside the studio painted a different picture. She didn't just leave, one crew member told a reporter off record. She was furious. She walked off that set with tears in her eyes, not because she was weak, but because she felt ambushed. Another insider claimed that Meghan's team had received advance topic approval, and that the harsher questions had been added last minute, possibly for ratings. She came to talk about global mentorship programs, not defend her entire existence. At the Markle residence in Montecito, the mood was just as heavy. Meghan stayed off her phone for most of the day, ignoring texts from friends, publicists, and even a few sympathetic producers from The View trying to explain what had happened. Harry, who had been watching the show live from home with concern growing by the second, wrapped his arms around her when she returned, saying only, "You didn't deserve that." Their two children, blissfully unaware of the media storm, ran through the living room giggling with their nanny while Meghan sat silently, her face pale but resolved. "I'm done playing nice," she said quietly. The ordeal ignited something in her, not just anger, but purpose. That evening, instead of releasing a defensive statement or making a media appearance, Meghan wrote a personal essay. It was raw, unfiltered, and honest. Titled, "The Price of Being Heard," she addressed not just the incident on The View, but the broader pattern she had faced for years, the scrutiny, the double standards, the gaslighting disguised as tough questions. They say if you can't take the heat, don't sit at the table. But when the fire is lit beneath only your chair, you begin to question whether the table was ever built for you in the first place. She didn't name names. She didn't throw punches. But her message was unmistakably strong. The essay was published through the Archwell Foundation's blog the next morning. Within hours, it had been viewed over 10 million times and translated into 5 languages. Celebrities, activists, and everyday readers began sharing it online. Kerry Washington, Viola Davis, and even Michelle Obama reposted it with words of support. Feminist author Roxane Gay called it, "the most necessary thing written this year." But not everyone was applauding. Conservative outlets mocked the essay, calling it a masterclass in deflection, while others accused her of playing the race and gender card to avoid accountability. Still, the response only magnified the deeper question people were starting to ask: why is Meghan Markle always held to a different standard? Later that week, an op-ed appeared in the New York Times, penned by a veteran journalist. Whether you love her or not, Meghan Markle's appearance on The View exposed something uncomfortable about how women, especially women of color, are interrogated when they gain influence. The format of a talk show should never feel like a courtroom. And if you make someone feel like they're on trial, don't be surprised when they walk out. Privately, ABC executives were divided. Ratings had skyrocketed, yes, but the backlash was intense. Some advertisers expressed concern. There were internal debates about whether the show had crossed a line. Joy Behar remained silent publicly but was reportedly deeply uncomfortable with how the segment had unfolded. Sunny Hostin stood by her line of questioning but admitted in a podcast interview that maybe the delivery could have been softer. Whoopi, ever the diplomat, finally broke her silence on the next episode. "What happened yesterday wasn't our proudest moment," she told viewers. "We push each other, and we push our guests. But we have to remember, pushing should never become piling on." That was the only acknowledgement the show gave, but it was enough to signal to viewers that even The View knew it had crossed an invisible line. As for Meghan, she stayed quiet after the essay. No interviews, no retaliation, no follow-ups. Instead, she doubled down on Women Forward, launching new mentorship hubs in Nairobi and Mumbai. She kept her head down, but her impact only grew. She wasn't interested in talk shows anymore. She was building something that didn't need daytime TV to survive. Her voice, once dissected and dismissed, was now reaching more people than ever. And the next time someone asked, why did she walk off The View? The answer wasn't just about one heated exchange. It was about decades of being told to sit down, smile, and never push back. But Meghan had finally stood up, and the world couldn't stop watching. 2 weeks had passed since the now infamous View incident, and the shockwaves were still rippling across social media, television, and even politics. Meghan Markle, though noticeably absent from follow-up interviews or public rebuttals, had become the center of a global conversation about media ethics, gender dynamics, and the unique scrutiny placed on women, especially women of color, when they dare to speak out. Meanwhile, inside ABC's studios, there was no escaping the consequences.